Privacy and security issues in terms of both complaints and breaches in healthcare continue to rise at ever greater cost. Included in this cost consideration is that despite the HIPAA privacy rule being 15 years old now, a significant number of complaints to the Office for Civil Rights, or OCR, do not represent an actual violation, but a misunderstanding on the part of the public or even insiders. A high proportion of complaints also center around failure to provide access to health information, which is not a breach, but a complaint that is clearly a misunderstanding, largely by providers, that this is an individual's right. Providers may seem to be the most vulnerable to small and large breaches due to the amount of protected health information that often must be processed in a very open environment compared to health plans and business associates. But 85% of breaches were due to known vulnerabilities that remain as a result of lack of attention and/or lack of resources. 65% were the result of weak, default, or stolen passwords, again largely preventable. Cybersecurity issues are increasing, though still smaller than known vulnerabilities and password issues. The fact that nearly half of security breaches involve insiders, either by accident or intent, is also a major concern. Another concern that is very new is attacks on medical devices, first reported in 2015 and is yet small in number, but a vulnerability that not only results in a breach, but could potentially impact the life of a patient. Many security officers are predicting that at least half of healthcare facilities will have a cybersecurity issue in 2018. Finally, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation does impact the U.S., including potentially healthcare. This is a complicated requirement that is costly to address. Cybersecurity is the state of being protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data. Cybersecurity threats entail hacking, malware, ransomware, cryptojacking, and more. Reducing cybersecurity threats is not much different than reducing any type of information security threat. A recent summary of top 10 security must-haves for 2017 included the following topics. As a HIPAA consultant, I've added to the list based on my findings and current literature. Risk assessment on both a regular and ad hoc basis forms the foundation for security budgeting and action. Lack of, old, or incomplete assessment was the major deficiency identified in the OCR audits. Executives must support risk assessment, be engaged in understanding its results, and make budget and other business decisions based on the residual risk assessment. Disaster recovery and contingency plans, including not only for loss of data, but power, communications, and network, must also include data backup and encryption for all data on all devices. Protected health information, PHI, which is encrypted and attacked, does not result in a breach under the breach notification regulations. But entities are still vulnerable to an attacker attempting to extract a ransom when the encrypted data is not backed up. Hence, there should be backup for all data, and these data should also be encrypted. Ransomware and cryptojacking can also attack software that is valuable. Software should be backed up. Dedicated security personnel are essential for continual monitoring, education, training, and awareness building. Even in small practices, a staff person should be trained in security basics and required to spend some regular time on security. Business associate vendor scrutiny needs are increasing, especially as outsourcing, cloud computing, etc. disperse business associate vendor staff around the world. Security by design that includes continuous testing, authentication safeguards, and adherence should be required of all business associates vendors. Better employee training, including screening new hires, regular access audits, and training staff on sanctions. The annual 1-hour web-based training program does not cut it. Security must be top of mind. Layered defense and defense in depth refer to there being no one solution for all security. Security should be redundantly applied at the network level, system level, application level, and transmission level of the information infrastructure. Improve technology hygiene, such as system upgrades and patches, routine monitoring, and securing the Internet of Medical Things equipment. Cybersecurity partnerships to rapidly learn about and respond to threats and incidents. Better software such as next-generation firewalls, advanced malware detection, email and web gateways, multi-factor authentication, encryption, vaulting solutions, and outsourcing security information and event management. Forensics consultants on the ready, and plans should exist and be desktop tested for notifying police, FBI, and others of ransomware attacks and how the entity will respond. ONC defines consent management as the system, process, or set of policies that enables patients to choose what health information they are willing to permit their healthcare providers to access and share. For example, patients can affirm participation in patient portals, personal health records, health information exchange services, and other uses of PHI for other than treatment payment operations. Often consent management is of concern when PHI includes sensitive information. Although there is no formal or common definition of sensitive data and is certainly subject to interpretation by the individual, it usually refers to information on domestic violence, genetics, mental health, reproductive health, substance abuse, and sexually transmitted infections. It is believed that as EHRs evolve and more data sharing among providers and health plans is occurring via formalized health information exchange structures, especially for value-based care, the consent management will become critical to assure patient and provider participation. ONC describes meaningful consent as the intersection of patient education and engagement, technology, and law policy. Current challenges to more robust consent management include technology standards, which are often completely lacking or lacking in the ability to carry out complex consent directives, compliance complexity itself, which we will discuss more in depth in a moment, identity and access management tools to monitor compliance with consent directives, cost and sustainability of consent management beyond the basics, workflow issues in obtaining consent from patients at each step in their healthcare journey, helping them understand consent options and their ramifications, and garnering trust that their consent options will be carried out. And finally, policy challenges, especially as federal and state laws vary significantly and can change without consideration for what others are doing. Consent can actually be highly complex. Consent models can allow for full opt-in or opt-out, or opt-in or opt-out with specified restrictions. Envision a patient asking for their cardiac history to only be shared with Dr. X, but not with Dr. P, their primary care provider, or Dr. T, who do they not trust, and that is only their cardiac history. Consent management begins with a consent model carried out by a consent directive from the patient that is supported by consent management technology. ONC has been conducting various projects on development and adopting consent management technology. These include data segmentation for privacy, in which metadata tags are used to maintain privacy across organizational structures and for sharing portions or segments of records. data segmentation based on provenance, that is the process of tracing and recording the origins of data and its movement, considered to be the foundation of data quality, is also being studied. Consent to Share is another program, an open source tool for consent management and data segmentation to integrate with EHRs and HIE systems, especially for behavioral health information in compliance with diverse federal and state privacy restrictions. Aspiring to Awesome is a pilot focusing on specific access control choices involving normalizing EHR patient information, understanding patient preferences on HIE, creating an ethics framework, and designing browser-based interface for patients to specify privacy preferences. And with that, we've come to the end of the first lecture in Unit 5 on technical needs for value-based care. References provided here address all the topics covered in this lecture and enable you to study any of particular interest in more depth.